Welcome to Capitol Preview, a weekly bipartisan discussion with Iowa legislators about the key issues facing our state. Brought to you by Mediacom.
Good morning and welcome to another edition of Capitol Preview. My name is Bill Peard. I'm the Executive Director of the Iowa Cable and Telecommunications Association. I do this program in partnership with our friends Mediacom. It's a show about senators and House reps that talk about Iowa legislation. Our guest today is Representative Mark Smith, House member from Marshalltown, District 71, and Green Mountain, Liscum, and Albion. So I appreciate you coming in here this morning very much.
It's nice to be here, Bill.
Mark, it's good to see you.
Yeah,
So like we kind of talked about, this is more of a conversational thing. It's not a red meat type of an interview, so
Sure.
we'll just talk.
Okay.
The week beginning March 4th is called the First Funnel. Can you explain what the First Funnel is?
This is kind of an important thing for the legislature, and Bill, it's self-imposed, so it could go away at some point. But you can introduce a bill on any subject under the sun, and believe me, people do that. And so this is a time, the first funnel is that a bill that originated in the House or originated in the Senate has to go through a committee in the House if it originated in the House, and in the Senate to stay alive for the legislative session.
Okay.
Now, staying alive is kind of a difficult point because it can always come back as an amendment, and until we finally close next year, everything can be brought back to life.
Okay, very good. When will we know what bills are alive and which ones are not moving forward?
What usually happens is that on Friday, and there can be committee meetings on this Friday, but usually work is done by the close of business on Thursday.
Okay.
And so usually on Friday morning, the news media will be reporting what bills, kind of giving an overview of what things are moving forward in the legislature and what things aren't.
Okay, all right. Are these bills that you hope will make it past the first funnel?
Yes, there are several bills.
Yeah.
I've been the primary author of a children's mental health bill, and of course I hope
that's
that
great.
that makes it. It probably will not, and it's one that people will see come back as an amendment here later on. I do hope that the governor's proposal for mental health does move forward as well. That I think that there are some good things in that. And yes, most of the work that we do is in a bipartisan way, and so there are several bills there. One in particular I'll cite, which is having to do with eliminating puppy mills here in the state of Iowa.
Are there bills that you hope won't make it?
Yes.
That's the first. I bet there are. Yeah.
Absolutely. There are a number of bills that restrict a woman's right to be in charge of her body, and of course I hope that all of those don't move forward. I think that they probably are going to move forward anyway. There are also, this morning in the legislature, there was a very controversial subcommittee on House File 542. The place was absolutely packed this morning, Bill, and it's a bill that would restrict the ability of the DNR to acquire land and would restrict the ability of Iowans to donate land to the state of Iowa. It has got a number of people up in arms, and I hope that one is dead as well.
Yeah. You know what? I hadn't even heard of that until you said something this morning about that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So did it just come up lately, or has it been floating around?
No, excuse me here. It did not come up lately. It's been out there for a while, and apparently it's a bill that the Farm Bureau, as I looked at the registration, the Farm Bureau and the Cattlemen's Association were people that were pressing this forward. And of course they have a considerable amount of political clout. I heard from a number of Farm Bureau members who are adamantly opposed to this bill as well.
Okay. All right. I know, so there's a second funnel too that happens later on in the spring.
That's correct.
Why don't you go through that a little bit?
All right, yeah. You almost have to have a master's degree
Yeah,
in
right.
legislative process to
Right.
understand all of this. But the second funnel will be 2 weeks from now. And then bills that came over from the Senate to the House have to have passed out of a House committee to be alive, and vice versa. Bills that went from the House to the Senate had to pass out of a Senate committee to be alive. And so that one, when the second funnel is done, you know, controversial issues like the death penalty that's being debated again, whether or not those are ones that have the potential of floor action or not.
Okay. What else? We just answered that one. What and when is the second funnel? You just said that, right?
Yeah.
I didn't realize it was that close
Yes.
behind the first one.
Right, yeah, it is. And then the movement, and this is probably another area that we'll talk about, the movement moves away from so much policy issue into budget issues. The March Revenue Estimating Conference meets. We know more what the projections are, and so we move more into budgeting. Although when I came to the legislature, those were very strict differences. You dealt with policy and policy bills, you dealt with budget on budget bills. That's kind of blended together now.
You're a licensed mental health professional, and you've been vocal about the need for more child mental health. This begs the question first, what do you think about the governor's bill that she has proposed? And second, what do you think should be done?
Well, I was glad that when the governor gave her State of the State address that she said it was time to stop talking. And in my 10 terms in the Iowa House, I think there have been at least 3 study groups on children's mental health. And so it was time to start action. Her bill puts in place a system for the delivery of children's mental health services, but I don't think deals with the nuts and bolts that we really need to be at. That if there's any condition out there, physical, mental, whatever, that early intervention doesn't help with, I would like to know what that is. And we know so much more now about the onset of mental health conditions and can help children earlier. So that's a shortfall that I see with that bill, and what we're proposing would emphasize these services to be in the schools, for us to have suicide prevention activities, and for us to ensure that these services are provided by mental health professionals.
I agree with you, Mark, in the fact that, you know, we've serviced adults and we've taken care of the adults, but we haven't taken care of the kids. And right, you're trying to get them when they're young. And
Yes, and of course our role here is to make sure that they're productive citizens and have as good a quality of life as possible.
Yeah.
The earlier we detect it, the earlier we treat it, the more likely that that's going to be the case.
that must be pretty rewarding to be in your profession and work with that.
I have been very honored to be a mental health professional and to be part of this.
What are the legislative process? More focus will be on the budget and less on policy. What are you hearing on the budget plan?
Well, the House and Senate released their budget targets last week, and if I believe that the Senate and the House seem to be closer together than we've sometimes seen in the past. It looks like the House has a better budget for the people of Iowa. Not as good as if we Democrats were in charge. And,
Right, of course not. Right,
right,
yeah.
it would be doing what's best for everyday Iowans. But it looks like it's the better of the two budgets. And so what will be happening now is that they will be continuing to work with the governor and each other to come to an agreement so that we can stay within the 110 days that we're supposed to be in session this year.
You know, I'm up there almost every day, and it just seems like it is a lot more easier to get along this year than last year? It seems like people are willing to work.
I think so. You know, we haven't seen the debates on real controversial issues. We had one controversial debate in the Iowa House that was on the 29 absentee ballots that were not counted that could have changed an election.
Right.
But the House is much closer in membership, that there are 46 Democrats and 54 Republicans. And I think a fairer number of moderate members. And so there needs to be more working together on the House side.
And getting out a little bit, the Secretary of State is in Iowa today, and along with the ambassador to China.
Yes.
Which, are you going to see him? Is he going to be up there today?
I haven't heard if he's going to be there or not, and certainly we would welcome him if he comes. The issues with trade with China, of course, are very concerning here in Iowa, with agricultural incomes down 12%, and the need to resolve those issues.
Yeah. It seems like Mr. Trump is sending his Secretary of State to Iowa, so it seems like that must have him concerned a little bit too.
It must have, and Iowans want to sell their products. They don't necessarily want subsidies for those products. They want to have a fair ability to sell those.
I think things go better, right?
Yes, they do go better.
But tell us a little bit about the sports betting. That seems to be a big deal that's caught on fire.
You know, and you just said that you're up there every day. And someone said to me over the weekend something that made a lot of sense. If you have a good policy issue, it only takes one lobbyist to deal with that good policy issue. And there seems to be a fair number of lobbyists and a fair number of people arguing different points about sports betting. So I'm watching this very closely and want to make sure that we do what is fair for the people of Iowa. As a mental health professional and having worked in substance abuse, I know that gambling is the only non-substance addiction recognized by the American Psychiatric Association. And so we need to be prepared to treat this addiction as other addictions, and be very careful that we do this right as we move forward with it.
Well, I tell you, that's all I have. We had a good conversation, and I appreciate you. Is there anything that is near and dear to your heart? We went through a bunch of stuff. So
I think the children's mental health is very near and dear to me, and I pioneered the programs in schools, so pushing that will be something you'll hear a lot from me on.
All right. Well, our guest today was, and we appreciate him coming in, Mark Smith, Democrat from House seat, District 71 in Marshalltown. We appreciate very much for you joining us this morning and talking about, we had a good conversation, talking about what you're up to up at the legislature, and it seems like you have some pretty substantial things that you're working on, so we appreciate that very much.
Thank you.
So please tune in again for another episode of Capitol Preview.